Hi, my name is Steve, and I am recording a rules video about Mordred, the latest game from CMON that's on Kickstarter right now. So why am I doing this? Well, this is my first video that I'm recording as a game's how to play rule book, and I also am doing this for the fun of it. I think this game looks really cool. I really can't wait to play it. I have about I don't know 300 games in my collection. I'm very well versed with many modern board games on the board game market, and I hope that other people don't miss their chance to back this game. Yeah, I think I just really want to see it do well. I hope that more stretch goals are unlocked and that sort of goodness. So since there's no rules video that's really out there, there is a playthrough by Dice Towers. I thought I would take some time to go through it myself. Okay, so here you can see this is the front image of the rule book. It's actually the most of the art is done by Adrian Smith, who is just a wonder man, wonder boy from the board game world. He's done a lot of Games Workshop's illustrations, a lot of CMON games. Here he is holding one of his illustrated books. He did Hate for CMON, as well as Conan for Monolith Games. There's the cover of the book of the box. Wow, what amazing stuff he makes! So he's just a real prodigy, a real genius. I think everyone loves Adrian Smith's art. It's just so awesome, especially the fantasy. For me, I just think he just makes amazing fantasy stuff. Here's one of the images for Blood Rage that he did. He did all the work for Blood Rage, which is very similar in a lot of ways to Mordred. Has a similar feel and look. But the game mechanisms and gameplay are very different, and that's what I wanted to show you guys today. Okay, here are the 4 factions that we'll be playing. Obviously, more art by Adrian Smith. And so you can see there's a dwarf faction. There's the, here up above me in green, the elf faction, the human faction. And on the far left over there is kind of a hobgoblin faction called the Hobyars. But I guess they're a little closer to humans than they are to hobgoblins in that they're, family-like and very human-like. Okay. So let's get started. Let's talk about some of the big game decisions and gameplay. First of all, I wanted to mention the designer of the game is Andrea Chiaravesio and Alexio Schneeberger. And they've both designed some games before. Andrea Carvesio designed Kingsburg, and they both put some work into Cyberpunk 2077. They're the co-designers, and as well as many other games. You can check it out on BGG. So the miniatures mostly are designed by Studio McVeigh, with friends of Studio McVeigh and a few other miniature companies, but they're really top notch. We're going to go through the miniatures. Most of the art is by Adrian Smith, but there is some other art. The miniatures are painted by different artists. And so what is the game about? Okay, it's a competitive game, not cooperative, between 2 to 4 players. You are going to be trying to get control of legendary Britannia. Okay, so this is an Arthurian legend. You might recognize that name, Mordred. If you know Arthurian legends, Arthur legends about King Arthur, you'll have heard of that name before. You've probably heard of Merlin. I think most people have heard of Merlin before. And of course, Morgana, all right? The legends are really deep. I really recommend going to Wikipedia, going to your favorite source of Arthurian legends, and learning a little bit about these stories. They're epic. They're sad. They're intense. There's human emotions, very very difficult parts to some of these stories. It kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones in a lot of ways. Okay, so these legends came out way before Lord of the Rings. Okay, but you're gonna have a few Lord of the Rings feels in this game. Okay, in the classic King Arthur stories, there's no elves, there's no goblins, but there's definitely a lot of monsters in this game, all right? Not that there weren't a lot of magical monsters at the time of King Arthur, but just maybe not exactly the same. So CMON is going with what the legends of King Arthur did, was slowly change over time. We have the Holy Grail legends. We have Lancelot and Guinevere. We have all sorts of stories that have been woven into the King Arthur legends and become part of it that happened over centuries of time. So CMON has a lot of leeway, I think, to change some of that. Okay, so these three, you don't actually play as these characters. Who knows how the end game mechanisms might end up working? There might be a surprise reveal by CMON at the end. But at the beginning, at least, we don't play as these factions. We are trying to get their favor. Basically, we're trying to, get their fate tokens. Okay, so these favor tokens are the things that we're trying to collect, mostly by defeating others in war. Okay, there's going to be battles, and the person who has the majority in that territory gets the token. After the war, which is several battles in many territories, occurs, everyone who has the majority in that territory, whether or not there was a battle fought, collects all the favor tokens in that territory. So these can be collected pretty quickly. So of course there's three colors for the three different leaders that you can see, and here there's three leaders. Oh my goodness. So there's three leaders, and they are going to be providing their favor tokens. Okay, so Mordred is the first one, and if you get three of his favors, the person who gets the most of his favors will get an extra 3 at the end of the game. Okay, a little extra bonus if you are have the most favor with Mordred. And the most clever part about this is that you can see that the advanced part of the card is that if you get 5 favors with him, he gives you some in-game bonus. Okay, you actually get to more easily move units that are not in battle to an adjacent territory. Okay. So you can read about that. I'm not going to go over the exact card rules because it'll take too long, but it does give you a movement bonus, which is pretty cool. All right, so there's the sculpt, Remy Tremblay sculpt, amazing stuff. And there's a painting of the same sculpt by Remy Tremblay. You will be moving this miniature on the board itself. There is a mechanism for doing that, which is really cool. So you can control him. Each person can take a turn to control him. But he's not part of any actual faction that you'll be playing. Morgana is the next one. Here you have Morgana at the end of the game. If you've of course you could get an extra 3 favors on top of what you already have if you have the most favors from her. And she gives you a bonus in magic, some sort of magic, a magic bonus if you have 5 favor with her, which is really pretty awesome. Here's a sculpt, another sculpt by Remy Tremblay. This is the Morgana sculpt. The game has not revealed who these characters are around her. They're sort of goat-like shaman-type mystics. We don't know who they are yet. I hope we'd find out because they look really cool. But there are a lot of awesome-looking factions and monsters that I will explain to you. So there they are, painted by Robert Carlson. And this is the third one, the third leader, Merlin. Merlin is going to give you, if you have 5, as soon as you get those 5 favors with him, which if you lose one and go down to 4, you will lose his bonus. But if you have all 5, you'll get that bonus, which is to add. It's basically a mustering bonus to be able to recruit more easily. Okay? That will stay with you to the end of the game. You can use it multiple times, that bonus, as long as you maintain at least 5 favor tokens with Merlin. Here's his sculpt, so awesome. And on the campaign page of CMON's Kickstarter for Mordred, you can see how the sculptor did this sculpt. He goes into detail. There's a whole update about that. Really amazing work. There's even a hidden Easter egg in his cloak. His cloak is actually made of leaves. All right, so this is following some of the legend of Merlin. He's an older man here. He's not the young Merlin that you might be used to. This is near the end of his life, and so we're near the end of the King Arthur story. And so where's King Arthur? This is an Arthurian legend. Where is the guy? Wow, this brings us into the core plot of our game. Mordred, who is actually the son of King Arthur, was wanting to fight his own father to take control of Britannia. That's true of the legendary tales. You can read all about it. It's really cool. Morgana is involved in this too. Morgana is actually the mother of Mordred, and different legends tell slightly different tales about that. But basically, There in this game and in most of the legends, Morgana is the mother of Mordred, and King Arthur is actually the father of Mordred. So there's a little bit of a son hate towards his father, a lot of son hate towards his father. You can read the legends to find out why that's the case. So Mordred wants to take over Britannia. He thinks it's rightfully his. He tries to take it over. He goes to the Fey kingdom, which is probably Avalon, I'm guessing. It might be Avalon. But the Fey land is, he somehow casts a spell, maybe with Morgana's help. He goes to the Fey realm. He finds some factions that want to take down Arthur, but he doesn't know how to bring them back to Britannia. He finds a spell. He casts the spell, and it's a total disaster, a big mistake. At this point, Britannia is merged with the Lost Realms of the Fey realms, and it makes a new place, which is kind of half Fey world, half Britannia, half real world, where there are monsters. They are combined, and it's a new realm. Okay, Mordred doesn't know how to undo it. The game doesn't tell us how it's done, but basically, King Arthur is the key here. We need King Arthur to undo this spell, but no one knows where he is. Some of his knights are also lost, and as of right now, CMON has not released the faction or the expansion that's going to tell us more about King Arthur and the Last Knights. Most people believe it's still coming. Okay, so that sets up our game. So basically, there's a fight for dominance. All three leaders want to dominate this new Britannia, where magic and chaos has entered it, monsters, and they also want to dominate this new realm, which is called the Lost Lands. And so factions are vying for their favor. They're clawing for this favor, fighting, as well as getting slight bonuses from the leaders to be the one who has the most favor with the leaders for some epic showdown that's going to happen right at the end, basically right when the game ends, to have the most favor tokens. That's how you win, okay? So the game is won by having the most favor tokens. You can see them again here. And compared to the cards, you can see they're about that size. So the red ones for Morgana, the blue ones for Merlin, and the yellow ones for Mordred. Okay, so you're trying to get those. That's how you win the game. All right, so you get to play as a faction, like I said, one of these four, as well as there's been 4 more factions revealed as an expansion that you can get. Another set of elves, another set of dwarves, some fawns, and I forget the 4th one, but you can take a look on the Kickstarter to find out what that 4th one is. So let's take a look here. So High Elves, this is the first faction in the base game. Here's what their sculpts look like. Just amazing. Look at those sculpts. I love them. They're beautiful. You have a chief who is the boss. You have the 3 mystics, and you have 9 warriors. This is your limit of how many you can actually bring onto the board when you're recruiting and mustering troops to the board. And of course, there's a limit to only 4 units per territory. So you could basically have like your chief, 2 mystics, and 1 warrior, or your chief, 1 mystic, and 2 warriors, right? So if your chief moves out of there, then you could have 2 warriors, 2 mystics, that sort of thing. All right, so that's a hard limit. The only way you can get around that is by moving your chief. He's the one who's doing the recruiting to another spot. I'll explain how the movement and the recruiting and the magic works in this game. Those are the 3 actions that you can take on your turn. Okay, you can march, that means to move. You can muster, which means to recruit, and you can do magic, which means to cast one of your magic spells. So the combat cards are used for battles, which I'll explain how that's going to work a little later. The spell cards, you're going to use those when you do the magic action. And there's your action discs. Okay, those discs are going to go in those little slots here. You can see on the left side of the board here. The faction tracker, I'll explain what it does. That's going to be how you keep track of time. Doing these actions takes time, and you have to be smart about your time. And you can even manage to actually do more than 1 action in a row, depending on how much time it takes you to do your actions, which I'll explain in a moment. That has to do with something called the chaos dial. So let's first take a look at the human faction. The human faction has, that's your chief in the middle. That's one of your warriors, the woman over there on the far end. And this bear-looking thing is not actually a person in a bear suit. It's the mystic. It's your mystic. It's this girl is your mystic. The little girl, who looks like her eyes are wide. She is a mage. She's controlling the bear. Okay? So there you can see it looks like 3 bears, but it's actually they're carrying the mystic. And in the mystic's little arms, you can see a little surprise. She's holding a stuffed teddy bear. And the stuffed teddy bear is holding another little thing, maybe another bear or another girl. So it's some sort of voodoo doll type thing. Okay, there's the 9 warriors. Again, same number of warriors, same number of mystics, and a chief. Amazing sculpts, right? So awesome. Okay, let's check it out here. Here we have the faction that we're talking about. For the humans, same sort of thing, exact same number of combat cards and spell cards. By the way, the combat cards are split in half. You can see there's a top blue half and a bottom green half. So when battles are fought, the warriors will do, and the chief will do the top half of the card. For each unit each unit in the battle, which would be 4, because there's a maximum 4 per territory, gets to possibly use a unit if you want. You can choose to use cards or not. So cards are your way of doing defense and attacks and other things. So you would play 4 cards, or 3 or 2 or 1 if you had 4 people. If you only had 1 unit in that territory, you could only play 1 card. Okay, so mystics will always do the bottom half of the card. Chiefs and warriors will do the top half of the card. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. The Hobyar faction. So chief is in the middle. Warrior is the woman on the far left, and this very old-looking woman is the mystic. She's the one doing magic. Okay. By the way, these are asymmetrical factions. So the combat cards are different for each faction. They play very differently. The spells are very different, including some permanent spells that will last for the entire game. So we're going to go over spells a little bit, some of the details. And then the chiefs themselves will have something on the combat card which makes them different from other factions. When they do the warrior top half of the combat card, it's going to be different. Okay. So the combat cards are totally different. The spell cards are very different, are extremely different from the other factions, although there will be some similarities. Okay, so here we have the Hobbyards. What an amazing faction. They look so awesome. So they are very family-like. Okay, the elves like to do magic. The humans, they kind of do a little bit of everything. These guys do a lot of mustering. The dwarves do a lot of defense. So that's kind of one way that they are different. The elves might want to be just 1 elf per, they do better if there's just 1 elf in each territory. Whereas the Hobbyards, they have ways of really replacing themselves and just they come and they have a lot of endurance for travel, right? So they can march easier. Okay. So, here we go. This is the combat cards, spell cards, action discs, all right, and of course the faction tracker to keep track of time. Okay, so the underground dwarfs are the 4th one. They have a lot of defense capabilities. Really cool faction. Look at those blue caps. Okay, so there's the chief. There's the mystics. Such awesome sculpts. Really, really got to hand it to CMON. These sculpts are so awesome. Let's take a look here. We have their combat cards, their spell cards, are such beautiful, beautiful cards. I mean, I love the illustrations. I love the graphic design. Everything's ace, A+. I like it better than Blood Rage. Maybe it's like on the same level of Rising Sun, but I mean, this is just so modern, so clean, so beautiful. All right, here the 4 base factions put together like this so you can kind of see. Obviously, they're different colors, which makes it easier for you to move them around. How do you know which one's a mystic, which one's a warrior? You can look at their base, okay, and which one's your chief. All right, so the mystic, I believe, is a square base. The warriors, I believe, are a hexagon base, and the chief, I believe, is an octagon base. All right, so the bases will be different, so you can easily distinguish them when you're playing with them on the map. let's go to our leaders. Okay, back to our leaders, because obviously, what's the point of the game? To win. How do you win? By having the most favor at the end. Okay? So let's talk about the leaders a little bit more. Oh yeah, well, let's talk about the end of the game. So the game ends. Everyone wants to know what makes this game end. Okay, as soon as number one, the last player tracker passes the chaos line for the second time. We're going to talk about what happens when it passes the chaos line the first time, but that's going to be different from what happens when it passes the second time. Okay, second time is the end of the game. All right, and you're going to tie up whoever has the most favorite tokens wins. The other way, alternate ending, is a player has taken the last favorite token from any leader. All right, so with some very efficient gameplay, it is possible to grab up all those favorite tokens off of the board, and as soon as that's happened, when they're all gone, that is the end of the game. Okay, and the person who has the most favorite tokens wins. So let's see, someone else is catching up to you. You have the most at this moment. If you're able to take that last favorite token, that could grab you the win for this game. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Here we go. Okay, hi. So yeah, my recording software just cut, and I'm going to continue. I'll just link the two videos together. So what I was saying was that you could magically transport a mystic from Britannia to the Lost Lands, and you could also muster one extra warrior to come with you. So they'll come there too, and you automatically get the favor token. All right, if you do that, you won't have your mystic anymore in Britannia. Okay, although you could send them back, but that would be expensive because it would cost a teleport spell. But you could. But you might just leave them there until in fact, if you were to get this, to send one mystic here, and one mystic here to get all three favor tokens, that instantly triggers the Chaos Breakout, which is the second half of the game. This map will unfold. You're going to see the Lost Lands, and that will start the next part of the game. Okay, so there is some strategy to sending your mystics to these islands. Number one, you get a favor token. Number two, they're already there on Lost Lands for the second half of the game. Okay, so but let's go to war for a second. All right, because war is the main way you will get these favor tokens. Right, the game starts with them distributed all over the board. They're even on the border regions. Some of the favor tokens start on border regions, and I'll explain how you claim those ones. But so basically, any territory where there are two factions, there will be a battle fought when war is triggered. War will be triggered, and you will go through, someone who triggered the war will go through one at a time and specify which battle is fought first. Okay, and so the two factions in that territory, because there's only two factions allowed per territory, will draw combat cards that will determine whether they win or lose that battle. And so there's actually not, there's actually just casualties. Okay, so depending on the cards you use, you'll lose a certain number of units. Okay, and after the cards have been played, there's only one chance to play cards. That battle's over. The person, and then you go to the next battle. You make it trigger. You make it go. Both people play their combat cards, and then the results say, are how many units each person dies, each person loses, and you continue like this through every single territory that's contested, meaning there's two factions in that territory. Once every region is finished, that battle. And you can put little markers on each one so that you can remember that the battle was finished there. Then it's time to collect the favor tokens. And for every territory where there's favor tokens, someone will claim them if they have the majority in that territory. Okay? So so even if there wasn't a battle that was fought there, if you have even one guy in that territory, you will claim the favor token. Now, some of these favor tokens are on the border regions between the territories. And those will only be claimed if you have a unit in both, the majority in both the territories. Okay? All right. And so the other thing that this is saying is that you, at the beginning of the game, you draw 7 combat cards into your hand. That's all you have for the whole battle. Okay? So you can have max 4 units per territory. If you had one territory that has 4 where there's a battle, and another territory where you have 3 units and there's a battle, and you use all of your cards, you don't have to, but if you did, that would be all 7 of your cards. If there was any other territories you were in where there was a battle, you would not have any more combat cards to play, and so that would be bad. You'll probably lose your character, your unit, okay, and then you won't be able to claim that favor because you won't have the majority. There are other ways to get favor too. There are some spell cards that give you favor. Even some combat cards will just instantly give you some favor. So there's different ways to get favor. So we'll talk about them too. But that's enough for battle for now. So how is battle triggered, you ask me? Battle is triggered with this chaos dial. Okay, so here's a chaos dial. And this is the chaos line that I already mentioned. Okay, so we start on the chaos dial here. Everyone starts here. And when you take an action, it's going to move you forward on the chaos dial. I will explain how that works, but just so you know, the person who gets to go is always the last in line. It's a little bit like Tokaido, if you've ever played that game. The last person gets to go. It's their turn. So if they take an action that only takes 1 time, then they will move this token just 1. All right, and then they'll get to go again because they're still last in line. If they took another action that took just 1 time, they would move it just 1 to on top of the blue one. And since they're still last in line, it goes back to front and top to bottom. Since they're on top of the blue token, they get to go again. Let's just say that time it took 2. This one it was 2 time. Then they would go 1, 2, and they would be here. The next person's turn is the green person. So you see, this beige person got to go 3, they did 3 actions. 1, they did that, 2, and then they did 3. Then it's the green person's turn, okay? And the game will progress like that. So that is your action. The other thing that happens is you're going to move this token away from the board where there's these symbols. And there's repeating 4 symbols. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it repeats again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it repeats again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 12 spaces. And so there's the... each symbol means something different, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. Okay, so let's actually start to do it right now. Okay, so all right, actually let's talk about the actions first. We're going to talk about the actions. So what can you do on your turn? You can only do 3 things. You can march, which means to move your units on the board. You can muster, which means to recruit more units to the board. And move your chief. So move your chief. You may or may not move your chief, and you can recruit some units. And magic, which means you're going to play one of your 5 spell cards. Okay, 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how many you want to. All right, and so we already talked about how the movement happens on the action track. All right, so you can even do multiple marches. All right. And multiple musters and multiple magic cards, spell cards, okay? But just remember, each one is going to cost you time. Plus, if it's the second time you're doing that action, it's going to cost you even more time. Okay, I'll explain how that works. So let's take a look. Here's the chaos dial. And by the way, yeah, this is where I was saying, if you remove your token from a slot, you will actually do another special event, which is represented by this symbol. We'll talk about those events. And one of the symbols is the war symbol. Even if you just cross over the war symbol, if you're the last person to cross over the war symbol, war is triggered, and all those battles happen like I just mentioned. Okay, so that's going to happen 3 times, right? There's going to be 3 war symbols per circle before you get to the chaos line. Okay? All right, don't worry. This is all going to come together in a moment. So All right, so we already talked about war. So war, again, is when there's two factions in one territory. Now, that's a hard rule. You cannot have three factions in the same territory. You can move through a territory that has two factions in it, but you cannot stop your units and leave them in a territory where there's already two factions, okay? So when a battle happens, it's always only between two factions, okay? And that battle will only occur when war is triggered, okay? So, like I was just explaining with the chaos dial. Okay, so there are some card effects that can create battles in new territories on the map. And so just remember that the cards can trump everything. Okay, so, all right. So the card might cause another battle to happen, but that's going to happen in the war itself, okay? So let's talk about the leaders for one more moment here, okay? Because they are the most important thing. We are trying to get their favor, and that is how we win the game. So again, we have Mordred, we have Morgana, and we have Merlin, and they are going to be moving around on the battlefield. We are going to control their movements, and I will explain to you how that happens in a moment. But let's go to our three choices. We can march, we can muster, we can do magic. Let's start with march. So if it's your turn to play, and because you're the last token on the chaos dial, you could choose march. You would take one of these little circles, that's your action tracker, and you would put it in the little slot. Okay, so this means that someone's already put an action token on muster and 2 on magic. Okay, and so you would have to, once you've placed all your action trackers and it's your turn, you would actually get them all back, okay? But these actually have an effect, an in-game effect, which is they cost you more time to do that action. So if I wanted to do magic and it's my turn, I would put another action tracker on this one, and it would cost me whatever that time to do the magic is plus 2 more time, okay? If I want to do muster, it would cost me whatever the time it takes to muster plus 1 more time. But march wouldn't cost me anything extra, okay? All right, so let's take a look at march. March says move a group of units from one territory into an adjacent territory. You use 1 time per movement, okay? So there's an example in the book and we'll go through it, okay? We'll go through it. So, all right, so march. Move any number of units from any territory to another. Several territories can be crossed in a single march, and movement does not need to be contiguous. Okay, but it's going to cost 1 time for every territory that you cross, okay? And you're moving groups of units. You can move groups of units, okay? So let's take a look at the example that they're going to explain. So let's say I want to move a group of units. I don't want to move my mystic. So let's say my name's Percy. I have these 2 warriors and this mystic, all right? And I want to move them from Garloth to Corbenic. All right, so I move these 2. That's 1 group from here to here. That is 1 time. That took 1 time, okay? And then let's say I want to move, I'm going to add my chief to it. So we're going to move these 2 warriors plus this chief from Corbenic to Elmet. That's going to be another time. So it cost me 2 time, all right? All right, so, and then let's say I wanted to move my mystic from way up here in I think it's called Garloth to Cornwall. There's actually a little blue line. It's hard to see the arrow, but it's connecting over the water, the Garloth to Cornwall, okay? And so if I want to move my mystic here, if it follows that line, it's basically taking a boat ride, and so even though they're not adjacent, I'm able to do that. That costs 1 time. So if we add them all up, that was 3 time, okay? Just so you can see that arrow, all right, it's right here. That's connecting Garloth to Cornwall. There's also another arrow connecting Wales to Cornwall, okay? Because they're not adjacent, they're not touching here with the water, but because of this boat trip, they're now adjacent, okay? Okay, by the way, here you can see the favor token on the borderland. It's in the zone between these 2 territories, And so if you had the majority in Wales and in Malahut, you would get that favor token, okay, at the end of war. Okay, and same thing with these ones here. If you had the majority between Garloth and Cornwall, you would get that favor token in the water. Okay, so let's see. So that march, if you remember, it cost 3 time. We moved 3 groups to adjacent territories, so that was 3 times. So I would move my action tracker 1, 2, 3 spots. Okay, whatever I reveal here. After that, I revealed a symbol here. After I did my movements, I'm going to then do that event, whatever that event is. Okay, so we'll talk about the events a little bit later. So let's move to the second one. We have muster. Okay, so what does muster do? You may move your chief, all right, and then you can recruit any number of units into that territory. For every unit you recruit, which could be a mystic, it could be a warrior, or we're going to find out later, there's actually a way to recruit a hero. You would recruit a hero just like you would recruit a warrior. And so heroes are just like warriors, but they have a special action card which gives them a special benefit in the war. Okay? If you want to recruit a knight is another kind of unit. You actually have to use a special magic card to get that knight. Okay, which we will talk about in a moment. But let's go to muster for a second. So, and by the way, remember these action trackers. So if you had 3 action discs on one spot, which meant that you had taken that same exact action 3 times, and you put a 4th one on top, that would actually cost you an extra 3 times to do that action. That is not efficient, so you probably never want to do that. Okay, but you might maybe if you really need to do it and you've already done that action once, it's just going to cost you 1 more time. All right, but probably it's better to avoid wasting time, because remember, you could potentially get extra actions. All right, you get to go once, then it's your turn again, you get to go again. So if you're behind everyone else, right, because the last person gets to go. Okay. All right, so if all the action discs are on the dashboard, which is 4, then at the start of the active player's turn, you retrieve all of your discs, okay? So there is going to be one that's duplicated. If you did 1 on each different action slot, then your 4th one, you're going to have to put somewhere where there already is one, okay? All right, although there is a magic card that can make you make one of your action tokens disappear, so you never have to lose that extra time. Okay, so let's go to muster. You get to move the chief unit to any adjacent territory. Okay, that's pretty good, because if he's already got 3 plus him in one territory, that's at the maximum. You can only have 4 guys in one territory. So you move your chief out of the territory. He's in a new territory maybe where there's no other, you don't have any other units, and you could muster 3 units. Okay, it could be any combination of mystics or warriors or even a hero. Okay, so you're never going to muster a chief, because the chief cannot die in battle. All right, he's indestructible. Okay, but the mystics and the warriors could die in battle. So, all right, so it costs 1 unit for each one. Okay, so let's take a look at the board example. Here we have Percy again. That would be, that's me. Has 1 warrior, and so he's from the human faction. So let's just say he has 1 warrior and 1 chief and element. So here it is. There's the warrior. There's his chief. This is element. Okay, he wants to do a muster action. So how many can he muster? Well, there's already 2 units there. He can only muster another 2. So that would be the limit. Okay. Yeah, he decides to muster, and he does not move his chief, and so that you would put the action token right in there, and then you would muster. So he musters a mystic, and he musters another warrior. So that would be 4 units. That is his maximum. Okay. So he can only have 4 units in a single territory, so he decides to add 1 warrior and 1 mystic. And then, since he added 2 units, that's 2 units of time. So, 1, 2. Okay, you move the action tracker 2 times, and then whatever symbol was revealed here, you're going to do that event. Okay? All right, so the last possible choice of actions is magic. You can cast spells up to the number of your mystics in play. Okay, so you had to recruit them first to have them in play, and then you're going to be able to cast spells. Now, how much time does it cost? The spells themselves will tell you how much. Some spells cost one unit of time. Some spells cost 2 units of time. Maybe there's a spell that costs 3. I haven't seen it yet. But so usually just 1 or 2 units of time. Okay, so if you have 2 mystics and you cast 2 spells that cost 2 units of time each, then that would cost you 4 units of time. That's quite a lot for one action. Okay, so here's the example. There's Percy. Percy is the human faction. Percy has the human faction. He has 1 mystic in Cornwall, 1 mystic in Elmet, and he's going to cast these spells. All right, so he's going to perform teleport, the teleport spell, and the knighthood spell. Okay, and so the first one is the teleport spell. So what does it say? I will show you the card a little closer in just a moment. But teleport says, move one of your mystics from a territory with a Kyre to its corresponding Lost Lands Kyre. Spawn 1 warrior and gain the favor there. Okay, so he's going to move the mystic to this little island here. And there's a Kyre there. There's also going to be a favor token there because it's put there at the beginning of the game. He takes the favor token, you can see, because it says gain 1 favor token there. He can also spawn or recruit a warrior there. So the mystic will be there, the warrior will be there, and that's it. Okay, and that's what that teleport costs 2 time. You can see the time right there. Okay, all right, later on in the game, after we've crossed that chaos line, then you will do the bottom part instead of the top. Okay, if you cast that spell, you would move all your units from one territory to any other territory. It's like a magical transport, and you can go to any territory on Lost Lands or in Britannia with that card. Okay, super powerful. Okay, so the teleport, you will notice, is a single use spell. You just use it that one time, it's discarded, and then when it comes up, when you use your last spell, you can draw cards again to get more spells. Okay, so let's take a look here. Here we have 2 more spell cards from the humans. I don't want to take too long to do this rules video, so you can read it on your own, but basically you can see that the humans have a spell card that just lets you gain a favor, okay? Of course, you have to lose a warrior to do that, okay? But this one, if you're losing the warrior in the battle, which is great because it's not really your fault, but this is a permanent spell. Once you've cast it for the rest of the game, when you lose 1 warrior in one battle, all right, so a maximum of 1, basically. If you lose that warrior in the battle, you would gain 1 favor, which is huge. You want to cast that spell early. And in this one, this is Ghost Warriors. In battle, you may add 1 warrior combat card if you don't have a warrior there. Wow, that's so cool. So if you had just your mystics in that battle, and then you would add 1 warrior to the combat. Okay, that's super powerful, right? So that's Ghost Warriors. And of course, the purple area will be even more powerful. Okay, so I won't go over all of them. The high elves, they can do some really cool things with this magical lightning. They can basically destroy any one unit anywhere in all of Britannia. Illusory tactics, they can swap combat cards after they're played with another player so that they can have a more powerful combat card and have a much better chance of doing more damage to the other person than is done to them in that battle. Okay, so here's some underground dwarf spell cards. So this one, before every battle, you can move one of your units from the battle to an adjacent territory. Okay, you just take your guy out of there. I don't think I want to fight that battle. Get him out of there, right? And dwarfs might actually do better if they have less units in battle. Here, this bottom part actually lets you add a favor of your choice, all right, to an adjacent territory. Wow, that's crazy, right? You just put a new favor on the board. And here, if you have no units left in this territory after a battle, you can add a warrior. So super Powerful spells. Both of these permanent spells, really game-changing. Okay? Yeah, so if you lost all your units after the battle, you could add a warrior to that territory. Okay, so super game-breaking spells, very, very powerful. And definitely unique to that faction. All right, those are the dwarves have that. Okay, so the Hobbyars, here we have, this is kind of a cool card. I do want to read about it. Every time you lose a unit, all right, for any reason, you place them on this card, all right? And this is a permanent spell. Once you cast it, that they're going to boom, boom, boom. You can have a max of 3, and then when Lost Lands is revealed, you discard this card and put those units that already died into any territory, probably on Lost Lands, right? Okay, super awesome, super awesome. And of course, after the chaos line has been crossed, every time you lose a unit, you place them on this card. And when there are 3 units on this card, you discard it and place any units on it into any territory. So you notice it says discard. That means this card would come back up again. You could cast it again and do this spell again. Okay? So super cool. This one, when losing a unit in battle, you may kill 1 unit in an adjacent territory instead. So it's like, I die, you gotta die too in an adjacent territory, right? So that is just, really powerful, cool spells. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let's keep moving on. So with teleport, like I said, you would be moving the Mystic from Elmet to the corresponding care, either Morgana care or the corresponding care that you were in. When you cast teleport, you have to be in a territory with this care or Kyre to be able to go to Lost Lands. Okay, I believe it's called Kyre. All right, so what do those Kyres look like? These are Mordred Kyres. They're actually going to be not tokens in the CMON game. They're actually going to be, if you get the KS exclusive CMON game in this campaign, you would get a Mordred Kyre mini. Okay, these are the Morgana Kyre minis. All right, and these are the Merlin Kyre minis. So you get trees for Merlin, these kind of cool looking houses for Morgana with like moons and stars and horns. And then, of course, Mordred has more of like a skull type, a Castle Grayskull Kyre. Okay, here are just some of the sculpts for the knights. Remember, I was mentioning you could get a knight. So there's actually a spell which we'll go over in a second, which will tell you how you get this knight. And there's monsters in this game too. Okay, 2 monsters will start at the beginning of every game, and we'll talk about what those monsters do and how you move them in a moment. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to knighthood. So for knighthood, this is a spell that you cast. Every faction will be able to cast it. When you cast it, it costs you 2 units of time. Okay, and you will replace one of your units, could be a warrior, could be a mystic, with an available knight. You just take that knight. All right, there's only going to be, I believe it's 1 per faction, 1 per player. So if there's 3 players, there's only going to be 3 knights available. You take him, you put him on the board where your unit was, you remove the unit, and then you get to do, he acts just like a warrior, except for he has this special ability, something really great. Basically, Blackheart can never be killed in battle. All right, if he's killed, you just move him to an adjacent territory, something like that. Okay, super awesome. So that, since he cast 2 spells and they both cost 2 units of time, that was a total of 4. So he would have to move his action tracker 4 spaces on the action dial, on the chaos dial. Okay, so here's, he's putting that knight in Corbenic. He's going to remove the warrior. Okay, that's what he did. He needed a mystic on the board to be able to do that, which he had, and he paid the time here. He moves it 4 units of time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. He would now be here. All right, whatever space he revealed is the event that he's going to do. Okay, I believe it's actually a battle. Okay, so since he'd be the last person to leave this battle symbol, then a war symbol, a war would be triggered, and all the battles that have to be fought on the board would occur at that moment after he's taken his turn. And he also gets a benefit out of that, which we will go over in a moment. So let's talk about using time wisely. Of course, you probably want to do actions that require 1 or 2 time to inch forward just a little bit, because if you do these massive huge actions, you are going to leave your opponents so powerful, because they can do action, 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 plus event, 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 event as they creep along on this time board. Okay, so you want to probably do little actions if at all possible, so that you can have more power by being able to have extra turns. And not to give your opponents an unfair advantage. So Chaos Dial events. All right, so the first event, let's talk about the first event. This little symbol is a monster. If you take your action tracker off of the monster, after you finished your action, you get to move the monster. The monster card itself, it has a sculpt, which is going to be on the board, and it's going to have a card which is going to say how much you can move that monster. Okay, so let's take a look at the monsters. Let's examine this. And you're going to move both monsters, not just one. There's 2 monsters on the game board. All right, at the beginning of the game, they're going to be randomly put in certain spots. Okay, so the beasts. This is such an awesome sculpt. All right, so her name is Bavanshi. Okay, so Bavanshi. And so this is where the word banshee came from. All right, banshees, careful, or the banshees will get you. All right, but it came from an old Welsh word, Bavanshi. All right, sort of sounds like I knew a girl named Siobhan. She almost spelled her name like that. Bavanshi. Okay, and Siobhan, Bavan. All right, she. So she is a very powerful monster. And what does her card do? Let's take a look at it. Well, first, when you move her, if you reveal that event, she moves from one movement. That means from one territory to an adjacent territory. When she moves into that territory, she just kills the warrior that's there. All right, that's of course what the Bavanshi does. So, and she also has a passive effect. Most monsters, or maybe all monsters, have a passive effect. Factions cannot add warriors to Bavanshi's territory. So, that I believe is referring to mustering. Probably not movement. I believe it's mustering. So if you had a chief there, you could not muster and get another troop, another unit to that territory. Okay, it also might mean movement, but I think maybe not, because that's what Lord Fog does. Okay, so that'll be clarified, of course, by the time the game comes out. Here's her amazing sculpt, just amazing. And so let's go to Lord Fog. Speaking of Lord Fog, he's so cool looking, or they are so cool looking, since there's 3 old men. So this is the personalization of a fog. It actually has an emotion, and it is a monster. And so what does it do? All right, so you can move it 1, so you would also move it to an adjacent territory. When he moves into the territory, if there's a mystic already there, that player must place 1 action die on their magic slot. Okay, so it's not going to make it impossible for them to do magic. It makes it harder for them to do magic. Okay, and it costs them more time. And the passive effect is that faction units cannot move into Lord Fog's territory. So that's why I said it's different from Bavanshi. Right? This one specifically says that actions cannot move into it. That's why I think Bavanshi's actions means the units cannot be mustered there. Okay? This one could be used defensively, guys. Think about it. If you had Lord Fog on your territory, no one can enter that territory. If you have some way to scoop up without fighting battles, the favor tokens that are on that territory, that could be a powerful combination. Of course, you'd have to make sure that Lord Fog is not moved if you want him to be on your territory. Okay, here is that awesome sculpt. So amazing, so amazing. Okay, and let's go to the next monster. We have Nightmare. Again, such a cool looking monster. He can move 1, 2, and remember there's only going to be 2 monsters on the board. But when Nightmare moves into a territory with a Mystic, that player must place 1 action disc on March. So it's going to be harder to march. It costs more time. And passive effect, Mystics in Nightmare's territory cannot cast spells. Just boom, like that. No spells allowed for that Mystic. Okay? So he could be kind of an annoyance if you send him to another faction, put him on their Mystic. That guy is out of commission. All right, there's the cool looking sculpt. What a cool looking sculpt. All right, so let's keep going. There's one more monster here, and of course there's not just this is just a base game, but it's CMON, so of course they have lots and lots and lots of monsters in the Kickstarter exclusives and in some of their stretch goals. Okay, so this one here sounds sort of like Leprechaun, Cluricon. Okay, Cluricon. He looks like a leprechaun, right? And I think he is. So here he is. When Cluricon moves into a territory with a chief, that player must place 1 action die on muster, so he makes it harder to muster. And if the active player ends their turn with their chief in Cluricon's territory, all right, then they have to add 1 extra time. All right, so they have to advance 1 time. It's going to cost them 1 time. Okay, so you don't want to put your chief in Cluricon's territory. All right, that's gonna be a problem for you. Okay, all right. So just a little, a little flavor, a little interesting flavor makes it harder to muster. Basically, he's got a tankard, so I guess he gets your chief drunk, right? Something like that. Okay, so cool looking mini, a very cool looking mini, and let's move on back to our leaders. All right, so our 3 leaders with their minis, they are the purpose for our game. There's their favorite tokens, just to remind you. Now, why am I talking about them? Because this symbol, the leader symbol, is the leader symbol. You can see it's surrounding each one of those favorite tokens. It has the same symbol as that faction, as that symbol on the chaos disc for tracking your actions. Okay? It's just a little bit different on the inside. So Merlin's blue looks like water. Morgana looks like some sort of tree. And Mordred, some sort of Celtic knot. All right. Now, when you move the leader, which you can do if you leave this symbol, you can move the leader into 1 adjacent territory, just like the monsters, but you instantly place 2 of their favorite tokens in that territory. So it's a new hotspot for everybody to go to try to get those favorite tokens. Okay? All right. So now the third one, we basically talked about war. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But the third symbol is fate. It looks like this, sort of like some sort of spinning lottery wheel or something. Fate. So before the chaos breakout, on the chaos wheel, all your action tokens leave that halfway point of the game. So they go all the way around the chaos wheel. They cross that purple line. Before that, we are in pre-chaos breakout. It's before chaos gets let loose. When you do this action, this event, you draw 2 cards from the fate deck. Okay? You get to look at them both. You get to choose one to do. You're going to do the top half of the card. The other one is going to go face down in the middle of the chaos dial. Okay? All right. So why do you want to do that? Well, because there's going to be some benefit you're going to get on that top half of the fate card, and the bottom half of the fate card that goes face down in the chaos dial will be done later. Only you know what it is. It's called the Cauldron of Knowledge in the middle of the chaos dial. Okay, so when you cross on the chaos dial, when you cross that purple line, there's a chaos breakout. Okay, and the chaos breakout means that one of the first things that you're going to do is you're going to open up the Lost Lands board, and then you're going to read however many fate cards are in the Cauldron of Knowledge, and you do each one. Only one person knows what it is, and they were prepared for it, and they're going to get some bonus from that. Okay? After the chaos breakout, if you get this fate symbol, you don't do fate cards anymore. You draw 2 chaos cards. and you do one of them, the other one goes down. All right, so they're going to be more powerful cards that are going to have some action that's going to happen. All right, these could give you a fate token. They could take a fate token away from someone else. They could move the monster. They can do all sorts of things to change the game state. Okay, they can have you teleport armies. They're really powerful. They do some cool things. Okay, so the base game has 9 fate cards, okay, and 11 chaos cards. Okay, there's the top and the bottom half of the fate cards. All right, but already there's an expansion that's going to give you more fate cards, more chaos cards, and a new game mechanism that you want to check out. I won't explain it now because I'm just kind of doing the base game. So here actually is that expansion. It's called the Blight expansion. And so here's the fate cards, here's the chaos cards, and you can possibly get these blight tokens. They're kind of like corruption. If you do too many of these special actions that you're allowed to do after each turn, you would get one of these blight corruption tokens. And at the end of the game, even if you win, if you have more blight tokens than your opponent, then you lose. Okay, so but there is a way to manipulate those blight tokens with these fate cards and these chaos cards. Okay, you can read those if you want there. Okay, so back to the chaos dial. So it is an action tracker. Everyone goes clockwise around it, and here this purple line is the chaos line. So everyone starts here. They're going to go all the way around. When everybody has crossed the chaos line, that triggers the chaos breakout, and that is going to open up Lost Lands, and you're going to read these cards and do what they say immediately. Okay. So after that, every spell you're going to do the bottom half of the spell. So the game state changes. Okay, you do the bottom half of the spell. Everything is more intense. Okay, and we'll talk about Lost Lands in a second. Okay, so for the next part, I want to talk about battle. And to do battle, I'm actually going to play just a moment of the CMON video. So we're going to go straight to the video, and we're going to bring it here. So here we go. You got a knight, and there you're gonna move the chaos track, and let's watch it. That triggers that event, right? You get to choose a fate card, the top half, the other one there. That's gonna open the chaos. So the chaos has been triggered. The chaos breakout, awesome. The board instantly do the cauldron of knowledge, bottom half of the field cards, after this you join chaos cards. And here is the battle, right? So it's going to be fighting units, territory, right? Okay, there we go. So we'll watch that whole video one more time at the end. It's really well done. Really shows you a lot of the gameplay mechanisms. Let's talk about war one more time. I think I've already talked about it so much, but just to continue just a little bit more. Okay, so remember, war can only happen, war means multiple battles, okay? The person who reveals war is the person who was last to come off the war symbol or last to cross the war symbol. Unlike the other symbols, this one is triggered even if someone crosses it. So of course, if you crossed it, you would do first the event, first your actions, then the event that you left, and after that's finished, like maybe it's move monsters or whatever, and then you're going to do the war. And you get to choose which territories fight first. Okay, you could say this battle, this should happen first. Then this battle, then this battle. Okay, battles are where two factions are duking it out to see who can cause the most casualties on the other. Because at the end of war, you get to take all of the factions that are in that territory if you have the majority. And that's for every territory in the entire game. As long as you have one guy there and there's a favor token, you get to claim it. And if there's a favor token between two territories where there is a zone, a border, and there's a favor token on that border, you get to take that token as well. So, all right, so that's what I was just explaining right here. All right, you went over the war symbol. So you would do, this is the fate symbol. You would do first fate, the fate event, then you would do the war event. Okay. All right. So let's take a look. Battle resolution. So in the battle, you're going to have your warriors and knights. Knights act just like warriors, except for they have that special ability on their card. They do only the top half of the combat card, the melee portion, which is the top half. The chief will also do the melee portion of the combat card, plus any additional effects that are on the combat card. Some of the cards will say the chief gets to do something extra, okay? The mystics use the bottom half of the card, okay? So each unit gets to play one card, okay? And so you will put that card on your faction board to show that it's there. In the warrior slot, if you had 2 warriors, you might put 2 cards. If you had 3 warriors in the battle, you might put 3 cards, all right? But you want to be careful not spend too many of these cards because you only have 7 and for all the battles of this war. 7 cards. Okay, so let's take a look at how this occurs. All right, to resolve the battle, first, the 2 players that are about to play, all right, who in that battle, they're going to lay down the cards they want to play at the same time. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay? All right, so for the mystics, those cards are going to resolve first, okay? So the person who should have their turn happen first, so they're the last player token, so they actually go first, all right? Whether or not it's the active player, you're going to go in turn order, okay? So that person gets to reveal their mystic card first. So they do what it says, they read the second half of it, then the other person gets to do their mystic cards, okay? Then everybody just counts up their the total number of sword symbols and the total number of shield symbols, okay? And so you could say, okay, of all my cards, all my combat cards, I've got 4 swords and I have 2 shields. And the other person says, oh, well, I have 4 shields and 2 swords, okay? So the first person said, okay, my 4 swords are totally stopped by your 4 shields, so that I don't do any damage to you, okay? So you just subtract the swords. So my 4 swords against your 4 shields, 0, so you get 0 damage, okay? But then he said he had 2 shields against the other person who had 2 swords. So yeah, so they both didn't do any damage, okay? So that's basically how it works. You subtract the swords from the shields, and that's how much damage they take. So if I had 4 swords and they only had 2 shields, then they would take 2 damage. For each damage, they lose 1 unit. Okay? So you both do casualties to each other. You both lose your units. They come off. Sometimes the combat cards say to do other things like move a unit out to an adjacent territory or whatever. You do what it says. Then that battle is over. You put a little symbol on that territory to show that it's finished, and you go to the next territory and do the same thing. Okay? So the Dice Tower has a nice playthrough if you want to listen to the battles that are happening and see how that goes. Here are some battle cards so you can see. Like this one here would give you 1 shield. Okay? And if you added units into any territory during the battle, you would get +1 sword. So you can get these little bonuses and things like that, okay? These things down here are for mystics, so mystics would be able to do these things. So I won't go over these because the video is already very long, but you can read it on your own to see what sort of combat cards you can do. So remember, the top half is the melee, the bottom half is the mystics would do that, okay? All right, you don't have to play as many combat cards as you have units in the battle. You can choose to play less. All right, there is the dwarf combat cards, and here are the Hobiar combat cards. So it's worth reading over those. They are very different. That's partly what makes your factions unique. Okay, so the end of war, we've already talked about this several times. You would get the favor tokens, and of course, if a player controls both territories along a border containing a favor token, they gain that favor token. Control means you have the majority of units in that territory. Okay? All right. Very, very nice. So, and do remember that the hand limit is 7. All right, so you'd only start with 7 cards, and after the war is finished, you draw back up to having 7. Okay? All right, so let's get back to Mordred's big mistake. Mordred made a big mistake, and that's why all this war is happening. The chaos has been unleashed, and it needs to resolve. There might be a big reveal at the end of the campaign. I hope there is. I hope that CMON really surprises us with some really cool surprise about Arthur and these leaders at the end. But as it is, it's really cool, and you're trying to get the favor of the leaders. Okay, so let's take a look at that chaos breakout one more time, because we're coming to that part now. So these factions, your factions are going to move their trackers when everybody has crossed that purple line. Like I said, it's going to trigger the chaos event, and the whole game is going to change. And several things happen. What do you do? So chaos breaks out if the last player token has crossed the chaos line for the first time, or if all favor tokens have been claimed on all 3 land islands. Like I said at the beginning of the game, that's another way to trigger the chaos breakout. Okay, so first step, you take the fake cards here, you read the bottom half, and you do what they say. They are really powerful. They do some powerful things, so you'll have a leg up if you know what they say and you're prepared for it. All right, after that, if you do the fate symbol, then you will do a chaos card instead of a fate card. You'll take 2 chaos cards, you'll read one of them and do it, the other one's discarded. And the first one's discarded too after you do it. Okay, here's an example of some fate cards, though, just to give you an idea. You can read these on your own, and some chaos cards, so you can read these on your own. But remember, these are specific to the Blight expansion, so they're going to be a little bit different than the base game chaos cards and fate cards. Okay, the next step is you're going to unfold this Lost Lands board. All right, so when you do that, remember, if there's any units that were there, of course, and the Kyres are still going to be there, they're going to stay there wherever they were in that territory. Okay, so the Lost Lands is revealed, and you are going to read and do the bottom half of these fate cards. This one, it says all players may add 1 warrior or mystic to their chief's territory if possible. That's huge, right? If you are ready for that, well, I guess everyone would be ready for that, right? But you want your chief to be in the Lost Lands when this happens, if at all possible. Okay? Or at least close to a Kyre, so you can get him to the Lost Lands. After chaos is triggered, the Kyres, the connecting 2 territories, are considered adjacent. So you no longer have to use a teleport spell to get them to the Lost Lands. You can just move them with a normal march action. They are considered adjacent. Chaos has been activated. Now you can just travel. Okay? You can travel back and forth. And this one, all players with the least favor add a random... Oh, I can't read it. A random monster out of the game into any territory for then it's just tie rules. Okay, so you get to move a monster. All right, probably you're going to move that monster to the Lost Lands, because everyone's going to be going there very soon. Why? Because, well, I'll tell you in a moment, but you're going to randomly place these. So there's actually 6 of them that come in the base game. Maybe there'll be more by the time time the campaign is over. You're going to put those in these slots. They do special things that, again, ratchet up that end game tension. There's less places to move. More battles are going to be fought. The battles will be more intense. All right, and each one of these is going to do something that's going to intensify the end game. You can read them if you want. This one says, like this one, when any unit ends their march in this territory, the player may cast a discarded spell, then remove it from the game. That's super powerful. You move there, you get to do a spell, one that's already discarded. That's super powerful, right? Okay, so you can see the end game tension is going to be really elevated because of these 3 extra rules that are going to be in these territories, okay? The other special thing about these 3 territories is, and I'll show you in a moment. Oh, if you want to read those, you can read them a little easier here and here and here, okay? All right, and so the other thing that's going to happen is that when chaos is triggered, the leaders instantly move there. They go to the Lost Lands, because this is where the end game showdown is going to happen, okay? So you move them opposite their Kyre. So you can see here's Merlin's Kyre, here's Morgana's Kyre, and here's Mordred's Kyre. So Morgana would go here, Merlin would go here, and oh, actually, sorry, that's Mordred's Kyre here. Okay, so Mordred would go here. And then you're going to place 2 favor tokens immediately in that territory where they are. And then you're going to take 2 each from each leader, and you're going to randomly distribute them on the border regions in those zones right here, right here, right here. Okay, so that this land is chock full of favor tokens. That's what you need to win the game, right? So you're gonna want to get there as fast as you can. Okay, you're gonna flip over the middle tile so that you know it's on the chaos side. From now on, it's chaos time. Okay, and of course that's what the fate cards and chaos cards look like. You saw that already. Okay, so let's see what's gonna happen now. Well, this is where the final showdown is going to happen. You're going to duke it out. You're going to duke it out until you've all crossed that chaos line one last time, or you've grabbed up every single favor token on both boards. If you do that, that triggers the end game. Okay, so end game. The game ends immediately as soon as the last player tracker passes the chaos line. If you know that you're way ahead in favor tokens, way past everyone else, and no one has a chance to catch up, even if they take lots and lots and lots of little actions, you could try to just zip ahead and cross, but you'd be at the whim and mercy of the other 2 opponents. They also have to inch forward, turn after turn after turn. Okay, so that might not be the best thing to do. You might try to grab up every last favor token you could. All right, but the player with the highest favor is going to be the winner. Where was Arthur in all of this? All right, most people who are in the campaign think Arthur is coming, and we will get to see him one last time. Okay? All right, guys. So this video has already been close to 55 minutes in the second half, so it's already too long. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a better idea of how everything works. Make sure to go to the campaign. Make sure to watch the CMON video from Mordred. It's really well done. Make sure to read the rule book. And check out all the cool expansions that you can get, all the add-ons, all the stretch goals. We didn't talk about heroes and knights very much. They're worth checking out. And that is it for today. I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy it. Please give me a thumbs up, or give me some comments if you like it. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. My name is Steve. I'm from Green Iguana Chi. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.